So the first thing that I want to do, because I'm an English teacher, is I want you to imagine something. And it's so important for you to be able to imagine something as you're reading within your own brain. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. Please, no peeking. There's not going to be anything up here that's going to just blow your mind. There's nothing up here. So just close your eyes. What I want you to do is I want you to imagine a building. I want you to imagine preferably a large building, a very, very large building. It's probably made of brick. I want you to see that that brick building is on a large area of land. That area of land is somewhere that's been predetermined in a different county somewhere. So imagine this. Please keep your eyes closed. Imagine also that this large brick building has outside forces that are making the decisions for this building. This building is overcrowded with people, too many people in there who don't want to be there. They have a restricted daily schedule. They have sectioned areas of their day where they have to complete menial tasks. They have a designated recreation time. They eat terrible food, and they leave this building not fully prepared for society. On the count of three, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to open your eyes. 1, 2, 3. Keep in mind that right here, this is a school. As I noted at the bottom, this is not a prison. Now, you might be thinking I just drew all of these parallels between school and prison, and that might seem a little bit harsh. Well, the reason that I do that is because I love school. I love education. I love learning more than anything in this entire world. My favorite author is James Baldwin, and he says something that I could easily replace the word America with school. I love school, or in America, more than any other country in this world, and exactly for this reason, I insist on the right to be able to criticize her perpetually. I want school to be the best place that it possibly can be, so I reserve the right to, of course, criticize it. Now, I want you to imagine that same building, large brick building on a large area of land. I'm fine with that, being predetermined in a different county somewhere. Now, instead of there being outside forces, what about if the inside forces were making those decisions, people inside that building? It can be overcrowded with people. In fact, it should be overcrowded with people. It should have a lot of people in it. But those people actually do want to be there, as you can see. And those people get excited to wake up in the morning. They are the ones who control what and how they complete these tasks. They value this as a place to be, and they are prepared for society and life after leaving this building. That's what school should be. Now, as I told you, I'm an English teacher, and I'm obsessed with words. I love words individually. I love how words come together and become a whole, how they work with one another. Now, we're going to go back really, really far pretty quickly, and I'm going to teach you a word that no one uses anymore, and that is the word adduce. It's a verb. It means to bring out something latent or potential in someone or something. Now, adduce comes from the Latin word educare, and that word, of course, means to cause something to grow in a certain way by pruning it. So typically you could think here about a plant, right? You want a rose bush to grow a certain way, a tomato bush, you want those things to grow in a certain way. Now, that word over time has turned into the word educate, which everyone in here in some way, shape, or form knows. What that means is to give the intellectual, moral, and social instruction to someone, especially a child. Typically that's done at a school or university. And then that word, of course, the noun form of that is the word education. Now, education, the first definition, is not always the right definition. That is the process of receiving or giving systematic instruction, especially at a school or university. Now, and you can please double-check me on this on your phones now or later if you would like to, look up education. The second definition is 3 words, an enlightening experience. In a lot of ways, school has not been that thing. So what I want you to keep in mind as I'm going through this presentation is another quote here by another one of my favorite authors, which is to not let schooling interfere with your education, right? Don't let the day-to-day things get in the way of that enlightening experience that you should have. So one of the things that I want us to really kind of take a quick, hard look at is testing, right? Testing is that thing that I think we've had as a thread coming through here, as surely as always, is here's some quick, easy data, because we love data, right? We have end-of-course testing in high schools. It takes about 10 days. We do that in the fall and the spring. We have the ACT work keys test, so we have all of these different things that we're going through with that. Tells you when we do that, how many days. We also do MAP testing, and of course we do AP and SAT and ACT. Lots of acronyms and initialisms up here. The big thing here is that over 10% of our school days, so about 18 days, give or take, is given to just administer testing, right? Not to prepare for it, but just to actually take and do the test. So combined, we're looking at about, like I said, 18. We can look at about 23 days combined in a 180-day schedule for these tests. So the really big thing that I want to think about and that I've been thinking about since I've been in school is these questions right here. What is it we're trying to achieve and measure in education, and why is it that we approach these things in this way? Now, there's 10 obvious truths that I want you to take a minute to read on your own. I'm not going to do the thing where I say, I'm not going to read these to you, but then read them to you, but I'm not going to read these to you. But I would like you to take a moment and look at these 10 really hard truths. These are things about education and about schooling that we've known, and everyone in here, there's at least half of these that you agree with in some way, shape, or form, but we keep ignoring them. Obvious things, things that are glaring to us. One of the things up here that sticks out the most to me would, of course, be number 3, right? Students are more likely to learn what they find interesting. If there's something that they're interested in, then they're going to want to learn about. They're going to want to push through with grit and want to figure out what is it that they can do, and they can learn that way. Some of these other ones that are, of course, glaring things would be something to the effect of number 7, right? We want our children to develop in many ways, not just academically. We want them to be better people. We want them to be fully prepared to leave that large brick building and feel like they are actually a good part of society. These are obvious truths. Like I said, I did a terrible job maybe at my citations down here. My wife can double check me. I did them at APA. Not sure if they came out good, but they look good. And that's what we do in school. If it looks good, it works, right? So there's something that I've been doing for the last 3 years when I'm in school, and that's something that is called 20 time. This is completely how I do education. I'm now not looking on that first definition, but more so an enlightening experience for my kids. In bold, you can see here, this is something that is pretty straightforward. You give 1 day a week. In my class, it's Fridays, that the students get to work on a project of their passion. They set a goal, and they go about trying to reach that goal over an 8 to 9 month period. As I said up here, I do that on Fridays. Fridays, it's always just that week to do things. If you look up here, I have very carefully put some things up here that have been up here that have been created by 20 time. 3M is a company that probably made 90% of the things that we're sitting on, around, and here right now. 2 of the big ones that all of us have used would be masking tape and Post-it notes. Those are things that 3M has made, and that is because since the 50s, they've been giving a lot of people at their work 15% of their time to work on things. Another huge proponent, which is actually driving, I think, this presentation right now, would be Google. Google's been doing this with their workers for a very long time, and that's how we've gotten a lot of the apps that they use, because people got to create them because they were passionate about Google and wanted Google to be a better company. So, a lot of the things that Encompass is, whether you think it or not, is I always explain this to my parents because they're like, my kid's doing what this year? You do the same reading, the same writing, and the same research that you would with a novel, but instead 1 day a week they're working on something that they actually want to read, right? They might not all want to read A Raisin in the Sun or The Great Gatsby or The Crucible, but at least they're doing those same skills that we're working on. Aside from that is they're working on setting goals. The children are terrible at that. Adults might be even worse at those things. Implementing those goals, I think we're all pretty bad at that sometimes, and actually reflecting and redirecting, I don't know many people that are really good at that. But it's really trying to take that step forward and get our kids to start working on those things. It gives them the basis to be able to be successful, independent learners. We hit almost all of the same things. If we want to go up here and look at the state standards that we have, doing 20 time hits almost every single one of those same exact things. We also have more recently the profile of the South Carolina graduate. Now, of course, all of the big things that we need to work on with the standards are up here at the top, but I want you to look, and this might be unfamiliar to some people in this room, at these 2 things, the world-class standards and the life and career characteristics. We want our students to be integrity, or sorry, not be integrity. We want them to have integrity, be self-directed, to be perseverant, to have work ethic and interpersonal skills. School does not do a good job of teaching those things to kids. 20 time is a step in the right direction. And of course, all of these other things for the world-class skills, it hits those same exact skills. I will let someone more important than me say lots of more important things than I can for a minute of your time.
What we are trying, all these discussions and talks here, is to see if we cannot radically bring about a transformation of the mind. Not accept things as they are, but to understand it, to go into it, to examine it, give your heart and your mind with everything that you have to find out, a way of living differently. But that depends on you and not somebody else. Because in this there is no teacher, no pupil, there is no leader, there is no guru, There's no master, no savior. You yourself are the teacher and the pupil. You are the master, you are the guru, you are the leader. You are everything. And to understand is to transform what is.
Right, for students, it is their learning to be able to take it and transform it into something that can be applicable to them and to their lives. We can, of course, edit this out. It'll look real good. Thank you. So what my kids are doing is I have about 60 kids each year that do 20 time, and that's 60 different projects upwards. But as a class, here are some of the things that we do totally as a class, which are some of these really important things that students don't learn. They always tell me, I don't know how to do taxes, I don't know how to do this thing. We work on some of the things that are really, really important, and I'll hit on some of these real quick. They have to propose their project to me. You have to tell me what you're going to do and why you're going to do it. I have to approve it. They're posting weekly on a blog so we can take a track and look at the progress that they've made. They're constantly writing, they're constantly speaking with one another and with me about reflection. We conference with one another. They have to do a sales pitch where they have to sell their project to their classmates. Their classmates are potential buyers, so the goal there is for them to actually be able to buy into each other's projects. They have to set a time or a date in advance. They have to apply throughout the year for grants, conferences, and funding that we find. And I teach them decorum, right? I teach them at formal events the ways in which you are supposed to professionally dress, how to write thank you cards. They don't do thank you cards anymore. It's a horrifying thing. And actually inviting guests. And we do a showcase at the end of the year where we work on these things with public speaking, the trifold board, and then they write a final essay at the end. Now, this quote has probably been some way, shape, or form from somewhere, but the one that I find most often quoted is from a 50s baseball player, and he said that experience is a hard teacher because it gives you the test first and it gives you the lesson afterwards, whereas in school, we of course do the exact opposite, right? We give you the lesson and then we test it. Now, we also have 10 rules within the class for this project that we do. We have 10 time commandments, I guess you could say. Every Friday, we are going to have 20 time. It doesn't matter if it was a 2-day week or a 3-day week or we've been out for a flood, we're working on doing 20 time. And 1 day a week. You're allowed to do that with a group of people if you would like to. You got to choose some sort of goal, something that you want to try and reach that you're passionate about. We present at the end of the year, which I'll show you an example of in just a moment, to the community so that they can actually see what they're doing, what they're interested in applies outside of school. And some of the other big things is they have to have a mentor, right? They need to have someone that's not me, who is a professional in their field where they have to learn to work with, and they actually have to communicate with that person and be a professional with them and learn alongside them. So my big question is this. If we're looking at all of these things that we're trying to achieve and trying to measure in school, well, what can we measure that these students have achieved if we're doing this by the end of the year? I'm going to show you a quick video here momentarily that I feel like will show you a lot more than a test ever could. This was our presentation last year that occurred in May. The student right here built a model rocket at the beginning of the year, knew nothing about rocketry, and by the end of the year could build a model rocket. You'll see a variety. I had a girl sell her original EP that she wrote and recorded. She sold all 60 copies within 5 minutes of the presentation to showcase. That is me answering the question that I told you about earlier. I had a lot of students this past year really want to do things about their health and get more physically fit, eat better, cook things on their own. Students were actually cooking meals for their parents, which I guess made the parents' life a little bit easier too. That student right there at that particular table, she raised about $4,000 last year for an organization that still today she is helping fund, that gives underprivileged athletes the chance to actually participate in sports when the costs get too high. And as you can see, we had a decent turnout that day as well. So what I leave you with, and I think that this is the most important image I will put up here for you today, right? Again, I'm an English teacher, so we read images in the same way that we read books, top to bottom, left to right. As you can see here, there's a lot for you to imagine for yourself. But what I want you to do is I want you to reimagine. School is an enlightening experience. Thank you so much.